When you're scrolling through endless pre-built gaming rigs, it's easy to feel a little paralyzed. The headlines scream 32GB DDR5, RTX 5060, water-cooled, and you start wondering whether any of that actually translates into smoother gameplay, quieter nights, or a decent price tag. That hesitation is real. No one wants to drop a few $100s on a box that looks impressive on paper but ends up gathering dust because it doesn't fit their setup or their budget. In this review, I'm going to walk through exactly how the Poseidon Prebuilt white gaming PC behaves once you plug it in, what kind of gamer will actually get value out of it, and where the trade-offs hide behind those glossy marketing photos. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the everyday scenario most of us care about: sitting down after work, launching a fresh install of a demanding title like Cyberpunk 2077 or Elden Ring, and seeing how the machine handles the load. The Poseidon is built around an AMD Ryzen 7 9700X, an 8-core Zen 5 processor that sits at 3.8 GHz out of the box. In practice, that means you're not just getting raw horsepower for raw FPS, you're also getting enough headroom for streaming, voice chat, and background applications without the frame time spikes you sometimes see on lower-tier CPUs. I ran a few 30-minute sessions of both games, and the frame rates stayed consistently within the 60-80 FPS range on high settings at 1080p, with only occasional dips when the in-game crowd surged. That stability is exactly what most casual to semi-hardcore gamers are after: a smooth experience without having to constantly tweak settings. The GPU is the RTX 5060 with 8GB of GDDR7 memory. It's not a top-of-line card, but it slots nicely into the good enough for 1080p high refresh tier. In my own tests, the card delivered 144Hz playable performance in titles like Valorant and Fortnite, while pushing around 60 FPS in more demanding 1440p sessions of Shadow of Tomb Raider. If you're looking to game at 1440p or dive into ray tracing heavy workloads, you'll notice the limits a bit sooner. The key takeaway is that the RTX 5060 does what it promises for the price bracket it sits in: solid, reliable performance without the premium price of an RTX 3070 or higher. Now, the water-cooled badge often feels like a marketing garnish, but here it actually does something useful. The Poseidon CPU is mounted on an all-in-one liquid cooler, and the case is populated with 7 ARGB fans. In a typical gaming session, the CPU temperatures hovered in the low 60 SC, even when the GPU was pushing hard. Compared to a comparable air-cooled build I have, the liquid cooler shaved about 10 degrees off the peak temps, which translates into a slightly quieter profile during long raids or marathon streaming sessions. The ARGB fans add a visual flare: white chassis with customizable lighting, so if your desk is part of your aesthetic, that glow can be a nice touch. However, the fan speed does ramp up under heavy load, and the noise can become a low-level whine that you'll notice if you're used to ultra-quiet builds. It's not obnoxious, but it's not whisper quiet either. One practical aspect many pre-built buyers overlook is the power supply. The Poseidon ships with a 650W unit, which is adequate for the current configuration, but it leaves little headroom if you plan to upgrade the GPU to something like an RTX 4070 in the future. The PSU is modular enough for decent cable management, but it isn't the highest efficiency tier you'd find in a custom build. If you're someone who likes to future-proof, you might see that as a limiting factor. On the flip side, the inclusion of a 1TB PCIe SSD means you'll have fast load times and plenty of space for several modern games, without the need to add an extra drive right away. In my day-to-day use, game installs finished in under a minute, and system boot times were virtually instantaneous. Let's talk about who should actually consider buying this machine. If you're a gamer who wants a solid, high-end experience out of the box, without spending weekends researching parts, soldering cables, or troubleshooting BIOS quirks, this is a compelling option. The fact that the system is assembled in the USA adds a layer of confidence for people who worry about cheap overseas assembly lines. It also means you can get a relatively quick support response if something does go wrong, which is a relief compared to some overseas shipped pre-built brands. Streamers who need a reliable CPU for encoding and a GPU that can handle both gaming and occasional rendering will find the balance of CPU and GPU here quite practical. The white aesthetic with ARGB lighting also makes it a good fit for setups that double as a showcase. Think small apartments where the desk is part of the room's visual vibe. Conversely, there are clear reasons to walk away. If you're hunting for the absolute best performance per dollar, building a custom PC will almost always beat a pre-built of comparable specs. You could likely assemble a system with a more powerful,